All right. How's everybody doing tonight? My name is 12 Gauge. Welcome to my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. I've tried to take my channel in a different direction today, all day, focusing on different things because, in reality, the same old case, the same old discussion really does get old sometimes. This is my part two of the series that I started on recovery last night at 2 in the morning. And this is going to talk about the reentry of how individuals reenter society once they've been incarcerated. It's going to talk about step one in the recovery process. So if you know anybody who's struggling with addiction or understanding the recovery process, you might tell them about this page. You might tell them about the lives that I present about sobriety. Because you know what? It's not easy to do on your own. And even if we try, sometimes we might get pretty far. But sometimes we fall down and we need a little assistance. And sometimes that little assistance can help us in being the difference between success and failure. So here we go. I'm going to introduce you again to Michael Johnson. He is a drug counselor and he counsels in the greater Detroit area. So if you're anywhere near the Detroit area and you need help, you might look at finding Michael Johnson because he is a heck of a counselor. Here we go.
There's something that has to take place, all right, now. You got to do this right now, all right? Because you cannot leave here surprised, all right? You cannot leave here surprised. You have got to leave this facility aware and knowing what the hell to expect as best you can and what's going on the outside, okay? One of the things I want to keep in the forefront is this. You need to understand, like I understand, that every man in this room is different. You're not the same, all right? I think a lot of times what happens as we do drug counseling and classes like this, we try to talk to everybody as if they're the same, as if they got the same issues, as if you see things the same way and you don't, all right?
And that's so true. We are all different people. We all have our different mentality. We have our different perceptions. We have our different understanding of what right and wrong is and what obstacles we must face if ever we're incarcerated and released back out into the public.
Some of you guys will leave here with a family that's intact. Some of you guys will leave here with a family that really don't want to see you no more. Am I right or wrong? You follow? Some of you will leave here with a job. Some of you will leave here unemployed. Some of you have educations. Some of you don't. And we have to take every last bit of that into consideration. I was talking to a gentleman right here. He is 54 years of age. My man right here is 36. Them two different people. You follow? What's going on with that 54-year-old guy and what's going on with the 36-year-old guy and what's going on with somebody in this room in their 20s is altogether different. All right? You at some point in time are going to have to create something. You are going to have to create your own recovery plan based on what it is you are recovering from.
And that is true. You know, many times you have to understand, what is it that I'm recovering from? Is it the lifestyle? Because many people, once they get incarcerated, they're able to kick that habit. They don't get high while they're in prison. They don't use drugs. They don't sneak and take advantage of the hooch or any of that stuff. And they're really invested in the classes and in getting better. So the recovery plan, once they get out, have to deal with, what exactly am I going to have to look out for? What am I going to have to evaluate every day? And what am I going to have as far as support system? And like you said, everybody has a different level of reentry.
You see what I mean? Based on where you come from and based on where you going when you leave here. You follow what I'm saying? Okay. One of the things that you have got to do, you have got to understand and you have got to have goals. You must have goals. All right. These goals are important because they give you a plan. They are used as a guide and they give you some type of direction. You cannot leave this facility blind. All right. You have to know where you're going and you have to know what it is you need to do. Too many people leave prison ready to play, just simply ready to get out, ready to go see everybody, ready to go hang out again. All right. Everybody in this room is now suffering from something that most people do not suffer from. You are suffering from what I call time loss. Y'all understand what I just said? Time loss. You have a block of time where a lot of productive things did not happen in your life. So therefore, when you leave here, there's one thing that you do not have. You do not have time to waste. I don't have.
And that right there is prolific in so many ways. You know, anytime you lose time to anything, whether it be you being in a coma, whether you being away from your family for a little while on a vacation or on a trip or anything you lose time on, you're always trying to make up for it the moment you get back wherever you left it. So being incarcerated, think about what individuals actually come home to. They come home to children that are no longer babies. They come home to spouses that are no longer young. They come home to family members that may or may not be there still. They come home to jobs that may or may not want them back. They come home to their clothes that may or may not fit anymore. They come home to all these responsibilities that's been waiting for them for however long they've been gone. And they don't want to waste time. They want to hit the ground running, and that's a good thing. But this is where the relapse happens sometimes because you hit the ground running too fast and you have unrealistic expectations.
Have none. You understand what I'm saying? Okay? When you write these goals, you have to be specific and you have to write them relative to what's happening with you and relative to what you're going through. All right? Your goals should include the area of family. All right? You need to list all the things that you feel are going on with family that you need to address. All right? Some of you have been away from your families for years. Am I right or wrong? All right? Like the gentleman here, I was talking to him, he's 54 years of age. Okay? Done a big one. All right? We talking about doing over 15 years of incarceration. When you do that, somebody that you left that was first born when you come home, now they now 15, 20 years old. Do you know how many things you have missed? There's a baby that you did not hug. You follow? A baby you did not hug, a diaper you did not change. Okay? While I'm on this topic, you got to understand something else. You got to understand, and you have got to be okay with what you lost and what you missed relative to your family. It's gone. All right?
And that's a hard one to accept. It really is. Especially if you come back and the parent that you had when you left are no longer around. If anything should happen to your child while you were gone, if anything should happen to your spouse or she had moved on, she divorced you and got remarried, whatever it is that you experience once you get out, that family dynamic is a huge one. And like he's saying, it's a hard pill to swallow to accept that you're coming home to something that may not have your name on it anymore. It may not be, this is your house, this is your car, these are your clothes, these are your bills. Because while you were gone, somebody was taking up the slack.
Certain things are not going to happen anymore. Anybody's mother died since you've been here? All right, now that's a deep thing. To lose your mother while you incarcerated, okay? My brother lost our mother while he was incarcerated. When he came home, I asked him a question. I said, man, what's it like to be home and mama's not here? He said, man, this is the first time I have ever come back from anywhere and mama not here. You follow? I can't go by mama's house when I get out of here. I can't have a meal with my mama when I get out of here. Now, dealing with my mother's death incarcerated and dealing with my mama's death free is two different things. All right? That becomes a goal. How do I deal with the absence of my mother when I leave this place? All right? Some of you have children who are somewhat mad at you. Anybody got a relationship like that? Where you're not getting the respect from your kids that you feel as though a father should have. Now you got a question. You follow? With a father like me, that has done what I have done to my children, what would their reception to me be like? Now you got to be careful.
You know, most of the time when I used to counsel the adults and they first came home, you know, the children were angry at them. They were distant. They didn't want to listen to anything. And the adult that was incarcerated that was coming home would tell me, it's okay. My wife's been running the show. I'm going to let her continue to do it even though I'm home. But it's hard for me to sit back and just watch my child do things that I don't approve of. I feel like I don't have a say in my own home, even though I'm back. And how fair is that to know that your child doesn't respect your rules, doesn't respect your voice of authority, doesn't respect any of that because you've been gone? And it's a hard pill for men to swallow when they come back into the home and things are different. Or like I was saying, maybe that home that he had when he left is no longer his home. He had to come back to a halfway house. He had to come back to a three-quarter house or find a sober living house because he has nowhere to go. He doesn't have his clothes anymore. He doesn't have his shoes. So he has to go to thrift stores or hand-me-down places, churches that give out stuff. Humility is a big one when you come home for a lot of these individuals because they, at the height of their criminal activity and drug use, they were making a lot of moves, a lot of money. And to come home to nothing, not even enough to buy you a soda, because here in the state of Texas, what they do is they give you $50 check and a bus pass. That's it. And most people, they go across the street to this little store that's there. They cash that $50. They buy a pack of cigarettes or a soda or whatever. They get on the bus. and they're on to an unknown destination of what awaits them.
Careful about something in the area of your family, because your family could also be a trap. By you being incarcerated, by you being the inmate, the prisoner, the offender, whatever title you using, you are the designated bad guy. Y'all understand what I'm saying? All right? You are in a position where you have to make promises and deals with members of the family. All right? You on the telephone and you writing letters right now telling them what you're not going to do no more. Am I right or wrong? Am I right or wrong? You see what I mean? But there's something you need from them also. My family members have something I need: food, shelter, clothing, transportation, and some money. You got to make sure that when you come home and you deal with that family, you are definitely going to need them, but how long can you remain a burden? Did y'all understand what I just said? All right, I need you for support, but I do not want to become a burden. All right? Because, see, there's a funny thing about me. I don't know about you. I don't like asking people for stuff. Anybody else? I do not like that. All right? I do not like, because it makes me feel like a bum. It makes me feel like a bum. It makes me feel like a beggar. As I'm doing my goals, if you know.
And this is a hard one too for men to acknowledge that they need support. You know, the family's open arm most of the time. If you come home to a family that loves you, that cares about you, they're giving you money, you know, to pay your PO. They're giving you money to go get your driver's license, to go get your ID. You know, they're footing the bill as good as much as they can. But there's some people that come home to a family that doesn't have any money, and they're living in the same room they had when they were a child, most oftentimes, sleeping in that twin bed, waking up without a job, without any money, without any purpose, trying to get their life back in order, not understanding what goals they need to start with. It's difficult. It's difficult for them. I used to see them a week out after they got out off that bus. Most of them were excited, but they were terrified. Because at that point, that family member that promised to take them anywhere they needed to go, anytime they needed to go, all of a sudden, this morning it was a problem. This morning it became a problem because you've already been home a week. Why can't you find your own way? Why can't you find your own transportation? Why don't you get a bike? Why don't you get a bus pass? Why don't you walk? And you have everybody telling you, well, if this was that important to you, including the counselor, this was that important to you, you should be able to walk anywhere you want to go. Because when you were in your addiction, the drug dealer's house never kept you away, whether it was the house next door or was the house across town. You walked in the snow, you walked in the rain, you walked in the sun. Nothing ever stopped you from getting what you wanted. And it's hard for these individuals to hear that because at this point, they're stressed out, they're overwhelmed, they're at that point where they have so many demands and their feet haven't even hit the ground yet. Their mind is still in the prison. Their mind is still on prison time because they've only been home a week. So how could they be on the outside world time? You know, in the prison, everything slows down. But once you get out, all of a sudden, it's full speed ahead.
That's what I just said. I have to also understand, what is it about me? Write this down. I want this written down. What is it about me that may interfere with the accomplishment of my goals, my personal characteristics? All right. One of mine is that I'm prideful. I have a lot of pride. Anybody else? I don't like asking people for stuff. All right. I don't like eating food that I did not participate in the purchase of. I don't like that. I don't like living in somebody else's house. All right. I feel like I'm interfering with their progress and their process. All right? When I don't have money, all right? When I do not have money, I feel inferior and inadequate. And it depresses the hell out of me to be broke. Anybody else? You know what I mean? Write this down. What does broke make you do? Jot that down. All right? How do you feel when you do not have any money? Also, in the area of your family, there's something else we need to know. You need to figure out, what is it that I owe? Or what is it that they owe? Because some of you may go back to the family with a boatload of guilt. Some of you may go back to the family with a boatload of anger. Okay? Because there's a funny thing happens after you do time. People forget you. Am I right or wrong? You know what I mean? They write a bunch of long-ass letters when you first get here. I'm missing you, still running that nickname crap. I miss you, boo. You know what I mean? Loving you, thinking about you. It ain't around here without you. Am I right or wrong? On the phone, crying and stuff, and it may be a blur in the ink, and they'll tell you, that's my tear. Y'all get that? That's my tear. You see what I mean?
And he's right on point with that. When you first get there, people are writing you letters left and right, writing you letters, and you're not understanding. You're not understanding why people left you behind. Because people tell you, I'm going to ride or die with you. I'm going to ride. I'm going to ride with you. I'm going to do this time with you. And there's a lot of good people that do. There's a lot of people that do. There's a lot of people that honestly, they hold it down. They hold the family down. They hold the bills down. They hold the ability to send you money. They hold a lot of stuff down. So when you come home, sometimes you don't have it as bad as other people because you've had this support system the whole time. But it still is a burden to that family member. And you know that as a man. You know that as a man. So when you get home, you want to make up for lost time as quick as possible. You want to help like anybody else would. You want to help your wife. You want to help your girlfriend, whoever she is. You want to help your family because they held it down for you while you were gone. So you come home broke. What are you going to do? How are you going to help them? Because you're going to have all these old friends that are going to be asking you, what you doing? You hold on to anything? You got anything? I can give you a little bit of money. I can give you a job. I can hook you up. I can front you some money. Confront you some dope. You can come back working for me. And here you are, fresh on the street, with nothing. And you have to make a choice. Do I leave those people behind and focus on my family and focus on the probation or parole that I have to do to get through that, to suffer and struggle? Or do I take the easy way out and try to play the game again to make it? Not to get caught, to get through. Here's another video for you. I hope you're enjoying this. If anybody is watching, here we go.
The lifestyle I live, it wasn't no payoff. I pay it. Matter of fact, I'm paying right now.
I have 5 children. 4 girls and 1 boy. The oldest are 10 and the youngest is 7. All by different women. You know, I was drugging, dealing, and I done seen a lot of money, cars, a lot of materialistic things, But when it all came down to it, I lost a lot of things too, like family, freedom, and I lost too much. I lost a lot.
Oh, well, a lot of relationships I had in my life went downhill. My whole life went downhill. I couldn't function right.
I've lost not only people that were good, good friends in my life, going because there were some people in my life that were good friends, didn't use drugs, always did try to help me. Those friends, I've lost all of them. I've lost most of my family. My family's.
Well, a lot of the consequences started at an early age for me. I mean, at 16, I had my first child.
I lost both of my parents in the last 5 years. Me and my kids, relationships, I don't have one with them. I have a little daughter.
Because no matter what people tell you that are incarcerated, they have to shut down their emotion. They have to shut down those tears that they want to cry. They have to shut down all the things that sadden them. And they have to give a look of confidence, a stoicism that overcomes any fear that they might encounter. And no matter what happens on the outside world, you can make your time easy or you can make it hard. And if you make your time hard, you're going to keep one hand in the prison and you're going to keep the other hand out in the real world. And I've heard a lot of people tell me that is doing hard time. You stay connected to the outside world, but your feelings for anything that goes on, you can't change it. You have to be dead to the outside. Even in visits. Because I've visited people that are locked up. They're not the same person. They come out and you can see that they're there, but their eyes are a million miles away. It takes them almost a quarter way through the visit before they thaw out enough to realize that you're there. And then almost by the time the visit's over, you can see them freezing up again to go back to their dorm. It's a sad, sad state.
That I'm not able to visit with her at all because of the crime I committed at the time when I stayed with them.
The first time I went to the penitentiary was almost as if I was going to Kitty Land. I left home for 9.5 months. Went down on a Tuesday, felt like I was back on a Thursday.
I have a son that's 20. His name is Terrell. I have a son that's 13. His name is Antonio. I got a daughter named Letitia. She's 1. I also have a daughter that's 9. Her name is Boteria. All of them are different women,
The drugs sort of put that mask over your face, like it makes you think everything's going okay. Like it blinds your eyes. You think everything's going okay, but the whole time things around you are just falling apart. But you don't see it.
Most of my years have been either on parole or probation. It took me 7 years to get off parole or probation, and I was off for 2 years, and now I'm back in the penal system. All my cases have been alcohol or drug related.
Lost plenty good women that was in my corner, mistrust of a lot of friends and family members. But I kept it, I didn't put it out there. They knew I drink and they knew I smoke, but they never knew that I did, snorted cocaine or laced it with marijuana, things of that nature. But for my drug habit, I lost a good woman, the mother of both of my kids. I lost respect for myself. My family lost respect for me. This is not my first bit. This is my third bit. If I keep my old ways of thinking, I know I'll be back.
And you know what's tragic? Is most individuals are smart enough to know how to stay out. They really are. Most individuals that I've encountered, they have the know-how. They're smart. They're able to comprehend things. They're able to build from their hands. You tell them how to do something one time, they are the best at it. You tell them to build you something, most of them can build it without a plan. They can just visualize it and build it. But when it comes to them not doing the extra things, the things that you warn them about, the pitfalls, the unseen, I look at this jail roster that I used to look at every morning at the place where I work. It was like checking up to make sure whoever I had on my individual list for the day to see for counseling, if they were really going to show. And I've still looked at it even after almost 3 years removed from my old job. And I still see people that I used to know sit across from me, declaring their lives, wanting to be free from alcohol, wanting to be free from drugs, and wanting to be sober with a lifestyle of dignity and respect. And does it mean they're bad people? No, it doesn't. Do people make mistakes? Of course we do. But there's times whenever somebody has to wisen up and tell themselves, hey, is this the life that I want? Or do I want to do what's being suggested to me by so many other people that are living a life free from the agony and circumstances that I put myself into? Wonder if I got copyrighted. No, not yet. Here we go.
Than one boy. The oldest are 10, and the youngest is 7. All by different women.
I tried to live a life of crime, but I failed. All right? And I'm really all right with accepting the fact that my life and my career as a criminal, it didn't work out. Can anybody agree with that? Okay. Mine didn't work out. All right? Even though I was trying my best to make a profound commitment to being a crook and a criminal and a drug addict, I swore I was going to do that for the rest of my life. I loved it. All right? I, honest to God, loved that lifestyle that I was living. But I had to come out. Right? One of the reasons why I had to come out, I could no longer handle the payoff from drug use, alcohol use, and my criminal activity. Okay, I couldn't handle the payoff. All right, when I looked at it real close, I was always in the same position over and over again. All right, right now we in therapy, right? What is this for is a big question. All right, me personally, I went through treatment 3 times. Is there anybody in this room that has been through therapy or incarceration more than once? Okay, I got some teammates in here. All right, one of the reasons was I wanted some of what therapy had to offer, but I didn't want all of it. All right, I didn't want all of it. I could see myself giving up alcohol and drugs. I could see myself giving up street corners. But I could not see myself giving up gambling, giving up carrying a pistol, giving up some of my old friends. I didn't want to give them up. All right? When I was in therapy, and I'm hoping that all of you are doing this right now, I had to sincerely think about what it was I was doing and how I was truly living. Because, see, it got to a point where I was always experiencing a consequence. Okay? Always experiencing a consequence. One was being in treatment. Another one was being in jail. My addiction took me to the point to where I wound up homeless. Anybody in this room ever been homeless, had to sleep outside in parked cars, abandoned houses, stuff like that? I had to do that. I was an embarrassment for my family. All right? My family would see me coming and just start shaking their heads like, here he come again. All right? It got to a point they did not want to hear what I had to say, nor did they believe me. Okay? I had to understand something. When I got to therapy, I began to look at my relationship with alcohol, my relationship with drugs, and my relationship with crime, and understand something about this. Even though it was something that I claimed, that I enjoyed, and I prided myself on my abilities under the influence of alcohol, under the influence of drugs, and within my criminal behavior and lifestyle, I prided myself. I thought that I was a success when I was involved in this behavior.
Hey, there's no truer statement right there. When you're under the influence and you're living your life so fast, you do believe that you are a success no matter what people are telling you. People are telling you, if you love me, you would stop using. If you love me, you would put that down. If you love me, you'd come home tonight. If you love me, you wouldn't make me worry about you. If you loved me or you loved your family, you'd stop lying and stealing and manipulating us. But in the mindset of an individual who has the twisted loyalties, you do, and you stay away because you say, I'm protecting all the people I love. That is your view. I'm protecting the people I love. That's why I stay away. But in reality, does that really help? Or does that hurt?
I thought I was really doing something. I thought I was really living. I thought I really had it together. While I was in therapy, I had to do a thorough inspection of my relationship to these three things. And I found out that the only payoff that I really received, and I have to understand, what is the payoff of alcoholism? What is the payoff of drug addiction? And what is the payoff when I'm involved in criminal activity? All right? My payoff is I received isolation. I received loneliness. I had a nonstop, constant sense of failure. I was also an embarrassment to my family and my loved ones. It was a very humiliating experience because, see, while you're incarcerated and while you are in treatment, you are a grown man, right?
Yeah, think about that. Drugs and alcohol and criminal behavior do nothing but isolate you from the people you love because you are an embarrassment to them. They always tell you, I raised you better than this. I raised you to be an example, to be success. So isolation brings on loneliness. And you're being told how much of a failure you are because they didn't raise you like this. They didn't teach you to be this. They didn't raise you to be a drug addict or a criminal. They raised you to be a successful, law-abiding citizen. And it's also humiliating when you go to Thanksgiving dinner and the moment you walk in and your dirty clothes and you're smelly and all that, and everybody all of a sudden starts hiding their jewelry, clutching their purse a little tighter. Your mom gets up and goes into her room and starts hiding the jewelry and the expensive things, goes into the bathroom making sure that she hides all the good stuff because they know that you're going to steal, even if you're not. And that is the humiliating and embarrassment part of the addiction and the criminal lifestyle. Think about that. How would you feel if you go to your house, your parents' house, or whoever, and all of a sudden they hide their purse or they hide their cell phones or they hide something of importance, or they act shocked because you stop in unannounced and they didn't have time to put away stuff before you got there? Wouldn't it make you feel a little humiliated? Of course it would.
You got people telling you when to go to bed. All right? You got people telling you when to turn on the television, when to turn the television off. You got people telling you to sign in and sign out. All right? I had to also understand that addiction and criminal activity was a very degrading activity. And I had to understand that. And I had to accept that. I also had to look at addiction and criminal activity in this respect. It was definitely a death activity. Everything that I involved myself with died. All right? When you use drugs, when you drink alcohol, when you involved in criminal activity, everything dies. All right? This was a death activity, and I looked at my life, and just like a dead person, I was starting to slowly decompose. Who knows what that means? Deteriorate. All right? No matter what I tried, it never panned out.
And that is the truth right there. When you get so far in it, everything you touch seems to burn. You're catching everything on fire. You're trying so hard to keep things, but you're destroying them as fast as you get them. And you see that when people come out of prison, because there's no harder worker than someone who just got out of prison or jail. And they have bills to pay, and they have all these things that they need to do. They're hard workers. They'll work up from sun up to sundown. But the moment something happens, the resolve is harbored. It's hindered. We're going to do step one with Father Martin, and then I'm going to conclude this. I hope you are enjoying this. It's a different aspect of what true crime is, but it's still discussing criminal activity, drug addiction, and alcoholism. So here we go. This guy's pretty funny.
Good evening. My purpose this evening is just to make a few comments on the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is the first in a series of 5 films on each of the first 5 steps. We begin obviously with number 1. I think it is true to say that the thing that is hardest to grasp is the obvious. As somebody once said, I can't see the woods because the trees are in the way. And so often that happens to us, to everybody. We fail to grasp the obvious. You see written up here the words of the very first step of Alcoholics Anonymous. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. No one who has a drinking problem is about to take on himself a regime of life that forbids the use of alcohol until and unless he admits that continuing to drink it will kill him. And so we come to the first step. And as someone once said, in commenting on the obvious, the longest journey begins with the first step. And usually the first step is the hardest, the most difficult. It's like the first step of a ladder. It's the highest and the widest, but it's the strongest. And somebody once said, and I agree with this, the depth and the seriousness with which you will work the rest of this program depends directly on the depth and the seriousness with which you accept this. This is not just a step you take and then you go on from there. This is an admission of one's condition. It's not just an intellectual thing after you hear a whole lot of facts and you get a whole lot of intellectual data from lectures and films and meetings and groups and individual therapy and everything. You can come to the conclusion intellectually, well, yes, I guess I'm an alcoholic. This step is down here. I am an alcoholic. And it only comes when we have a lovely meeting of these ingredients: honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness.
You know, if anybody is in the program, in the big book, the first 3 chapters of how it works, the first word honesty is mentioned 3 different times. So if you are incapable of getting honest with yourself, there's no way that you can get honest with your program. Your program has to be about honesty, being open-minded to different suggestions, and be willing to do something different. It's not easy. Even though it is a very simple program for a lot of people, it is not easy to accept that you have a problem every time you drink. Hell, I couldn't accept that. People would call me an alcoholic. They called me a drug addict. They called me all kinds of names: loser, bum, all this stuff. And still, I defended the alcohol in my behaviors because I was not going to be told who I was or what I was, depending on somebody else's label. And man, it was a tough ride. It was a tough ride, but when I got honest, things started to change. I stopped looking for excuses and I started looking for answers. Hey, Cash, welcome. Well, this guy may be dressed in a preacher, or I don't know if they call him pastor or whatever, but he's not going to preach to you, I promise. He's just going to speak about the first step. It's very good. He's humorous.
And so this is the how of recovery. How do I get well? How do I get rid of this hell that I'm in? How do I get out of the pit that I find myself at the bottom of? How? Through a basic honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. And if you have those ingredients, you can indeed get well. And it begins here. It begins here. In 1935, 2 men sat down at a kitchen table. One had 6 months of sobriety, one had about 6 hours. They were perfectly intelligent men. They were not screwballs, they were not fanatics. One was a stockbroker, one was a physician, a surgeon. They had tried everything to get out of the hell that they were in. One man gained his 6 months of sobriety by trying to help other people get sober. He hadn't helped anyone, but he had helped himself by trying to help the others. He found out that the technique he was using to help them wasn't working simply because it wasn't valid. It wasn't valid because it wasn't working. He was trying to hammer nails with milk bottles, and the milk bottles kept breaking. You can only hammer nails when you have a hammer. And he was searching for the hammer, and he couldn't put a handle on it. You know what he was using to help them? He said, get right with God, and your drinking problem you'll be able to handle. He didn't know that you had to get rid of the drinking problem in order to get right with God. So like so many things in AA, he learned through trial and error.
I like that part. He said he was hammering nails with milk cartons. And how many times have we done that in our lives? We're hammering away with everything but what we should be using. And he said, until you get honest, that thing really changes.
His doctor, Dr. Silkworth, told him, the next alcoholic you talk to, why don't you use a scientific approach? Maybe something's wrong with us alcoholics. Our bodies can't handle alcohol normally. And that was the approach that he used to this scientific man, this physician, and it made sense. Have you tried this? Yes. Have you tried that? Yes. Have you tried the other thing? Yes. You're still drinking? Yes. Maybe something's wrong with us. In desperation, they were seeking an answer to that which was killing them. They were not theoricians. They didn't have any theories about how to get well. They just wanted to survive. And so they figured this. Let's just wipe the slate clean. They got rid of everything they had been trying before. They tried to wipe their minds clean so that they began now, at this point when they had met each other, with the mind being as Plato used to say, the human mind at birth is a tabula rasa, a clean slate on which experience and life does the writing. And this is the way they started. We had better admit that we cannot handle this problem. That's the way they started to get well. How can you get well unless you admit?
Thank you, Cash. First off, I was sitting here talking to myself. I was saying that early on in my sobriety, you know, I was getting in touch with my spirituality, and I was getting in touch with the religious portion of it very mildly. And I would get told, just pray about it. Everything's going to be all right. Just pray about it. Kind of like what he's talking about. Just pray about it. You'll get closer to God. And that would infuriate me. That would infuriate me that I was incapable of running my own life, and I had to pray for something that I didn't believe in, something that I didn't see, and something that did not make sense to me. I was such a fool at that point because I was trying to do this on my own terms. I would be in my own treatment center. I was trying to fix myself with my own understanding of something that I had no understanding about. My alcoholism and my drug addiction. And people would say, well, I know I can just quit anytime I want. Well, so could I. I'd be so hungover that I'd stop drinking for days, and then I'd sober up and, I'd swear it off, and I'd do good, and I'd try to rehydrate, eat the greasiest food to try to soak up the excess stuff from my blood and all that stuff. And then by the time it came to the weekend again, I'd make bargains with myself. Oh, I'll just go have one. Or I'll just go sit around with my friends and I won't drink. I'll drink Dr. Pepper. Or I'll drink water. And I'd sit there and I'd white knuckle it. And then I'd make deals with myself and say, you know what? I have been sober for a week, lying to myself. I don't have them specifically, Cash, but there are some journal entries in there that I've written about my past. They're mostly on the podcast with the little microphone on them. They're the ones that are just, the casual titled one. Those have some of my stories in my life. You know, Texas, I hope that you and your family and everybody around there stay safe. I really do. I'm not playing these to get people to have a conscience. I'm not playing these to get people to quit. I'm not playing these to guilt you or shame you. I'm playing these for just educational value because sometimes people want to hear something, but they just can't, like he said, see the forest for the trees. And once you put it in somebody's direct path, then they're looking at it and they're looking at it with a curious mindset. You have to make up your mind whether you want to stay clean and sober, whether you want to get better and take medication if you need it, whether you want to go and run 50 miles a day if that's what it takes for you to feel better. I mean, it's your life. So please don't ever take that my lives are trying to get you to quit anything that you may struggle with, because it is your life. And I appreciate that you're here supporting the channel. That means more to me than anything else. And if you ever do need help or you want a little push, I can do that. But please don't ever take it as I'm trying to get people to quit by showing these things. It's merely education, because some of us have family members that struggle with this stuff. And they don't know what to do. Friends with benefits, you just can't beat it. Not going to comment on that, Texas.
But you're sick. And that's what they did. They surrendered to a fact that no addict, whether it's addiction to alcohol or any other chemical, wants to admit. And that is that he or she is powerless over anything. But they had to come to that point if they wanted to survive. They were too close to death. They were too close to death. I think Bill Wilson realized at that moment of his life he had another drunk left. He just didn't know if he had another survival left. And he wanted to survive. And so he admitted a powerlessness over alcohol. That's a horrible thing to ask any human being to do, is to admit he's powerless over anything. And yet he had to surrender to win the war. That is the great paradox of recovery. We surrender in order to gain victory. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But
I've updated this in recent times because, I've done my own research on addiction, obviously, through my 20 plus years of working with it. Powerless means that you're completely incapable of change, in my mind. You're not powerless over an electric socket if it shocks you, right? Are you never going to use it again? No. I learned to respect that electric socket, knowing that the end result is me getting shocked potentially. I can either do it or I can just avoid it altogether and fix the problem. So I choose to use respect instead of powerless. And I'm not trying to rewrite the big book, but that works for me. I respect alcohol. I respect drugs and criminal behavior. When I stop respecting it, that's when consequences come. And that makes me powerless.
But you know what it boils down to? Alcoholics and drug addicts are perfectly otherwise intelligent men and women. This is the comparison I always use. They climb into a boxing ring every day of their lives with a champion and get beat up. And they keep getting into the ring. 16 years they get out of bed all black and blue, crawling along the floor, heading for the ring. Guess what's going through the little BB shot that they call a brain? How can I not get beat up today? While they're putting the gloves on. AA leans over their shoulder. Now listen to what AA says. Don't get in the ring. If you don't fight, you don't get beat. AA says if you don't take a drink, you can't get drunk. The obvious. The obvious. Why didn't I think of that? Begins here. If I can't win, what sense does it make to fight? And so step one is an acknowledgement of one's condition. And in my opinion, it is something that you keep inside your heart as well as your mind. You keep it inside your heart as you would keep a sobriety token in your pocket. You finger it often. And you finger with the fingers of your heart and your mind and your soul this thought here: I am powerless over alcohol. It's a deepening of a conviction. And the deeper that conviction is in your soul, the more seriously will you work the other 11 steps of the AA program. This is the first step in the ladder out of the pit of alcoholism or drug addiction.
You know, me being the overachiever, I worked the steps in a week and a half, waiting for the spiritual awakening to happen at step 12, right? At step 12, nothing happened. Nothing. No bright lights, no hearing of the angels singing, nothing. And I was just as miserable or more miserable than I was when I started working the steps. And somebody said, "You worked them in a week and a half? Did you work them with anybody else?" No. I looked at it like a questionnaire. Are you powerless over alcohol? Yeah, I am. Are you willing to turn your life over to something greater than you? Maybe. Well, and then so on, and then so on, and then so on. And you know, I had to get honest. I had to get open-minded, and I had to honestly sit down with somebody that I trusted and let them know who I was, what type of person I saw myself as. And this person, by listening to me and not giving me any suggestion but listening, helped me repair the inner turmoil of my soul. Because for a lot of years, I believed that I was worthless, useless, a piece of crap, an adulterer, a man whore, you call it, however you want. I was this, that, and the other, and I was all over the place. But when I got through with those 12 steps, working them in sequence, and sometimes having to work even backwards sometimes to go make amends to people, it taught me that I am not near as perfect as I thought I was. And at the end, when we decide that we finally get honest with ourselves and we get to that point of correction, we suddenly realize that we don't know as much as we ever thought we did. I was, Leslie. I was very good at it. I was very good. You know, I woke up one day and I said to myself, you know what? You don't know a damn thing about living. And here you just spit your mouthpiece every day trying to tell people. This was before I became a therapist, okay? Here you are telling people who come and ask you for suggestions, how they should live their lives, and blah, 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 and you don't live your life one bit like what you say. Hypocrite. Hypocrite. But it got me to the point I needed to get to, and that's the most important point that I'm trying to make is it doesn't matter where you start. It's each little step of the way gets you where you need to be.
Give in or cave in. It's one or the other. Now, how do I come to this admission? Through honesty. Through honesty. I once heard a man say to his patients, look at the record. Look at the record. Look at your record. If you come up with this, when I drank, I didn't control it, it controlled me. And my drinking made problems. What makes problems is one. And if your drinking makes problems, that's a drinking problem. I don't care what you call it, as long as you realize if this thing that I am doing is making trouble, it is.
That's a great question, Cash, because if someone is untrustworthy or you know that they're untrustworthy by their actions, you can still detach. And if there's somebody that you care about, you can love them from afar and just don't get close enough for them to hurt you. You know? Don't get close enough for them to hurt you. You can love them from afar. And there are a lot of bad people. But the word bad can be replaced with unhealthy, because if you label somebody being good or bad, that puts them in a little box and it says, okay, you'll never be able to escape this little box I put you in. I like to look at people as healthy and unhealthy. If somebody's healthy, then they're doing the right thing to stay motivated, focused, and all the good things, going in a positive direction. If they're unhealthy, they have the capacity to do the things to get healthy. Therefore, not being confined in a box, not being stuck with a label that incorporate that their living is going to be destined to be in peril and negativity for the rest of their days. But that's just me.
That is so self-evident, nobody can prove it. You either see it or you don't. You either see it or you don't. I always use this. Let's just answer a few simple questions. Have you ever in your life, ever, drunk more than you determined you were going to drink? I'm not talking about the fellow who every Friday gets his paycheck cashed at the local tavern, drinks 2 beers. Every now and then an old friend shows up and he drinks 4. I'm not talking about that. I'm asking you if you have ever drunk more than you determined you were going to drink. I know, honey, I made a jackass of myself at the last party. I swear on my sainted mother's grave, no more than 3. And you drink 23.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever in your entire life drunk more than you determined you were going to drink? Have you ever promised yourself not to drink more than a certain amount and gone beyond it?
Oh.
If your answer is yes once, you're probably an alcoholic, and if it's twice, sign up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Answer this one, it's easy. Have you ever lied about your drinking? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Quit piddling around. Yes or no? If your answer is yes, you're in. I use one question to diagnose the disease. Look at the behavior you're considering and answer this question. Do normal drinkers do this? Question, do normal drinkers lie about their drinking? Answer, they have absolutely no reason to. How many of you got here for good behavior?
Well, let me ask you a question on that statement, Cash. Who are you gaining forgiveness from with the stories that you carry guilt and shame? You know, guilt and shame is guilt is living in the past, and shame is the behavior associated with the event. You know, who are you trying to gain forgiveness from? Because you have to forgive yourself before you can ever allow anybody else to gain forgiveness from you. You have to get to the point where you make peace with whatever you've done, good, bad, indifferent, because none of us are perfect. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. We all do things we wish we didn't do. We all say things we wish we didn't say. We all hurt people we wish we didn't hurt. But if you can't forgive yourself and you're only looking for other people to forgive you, it's never going to end in your head between your ears. And I hope that makes sense.
God. How many of you made it here for being wife of the year? Oh, honey, there's no one on earth like you. You're the perfect wife. Let's get you into treatment. Honestly, do you see what I'm doing? I am kicking the daylights out of the obvious. Did you ever hide a bottle? Normal people don't do that. Did you ever hide one from yourself? Did you ever find it after you're sober 6 years? What good is it then? I'm kicking the daylights out of the obvious. Now watch this. Hey, don't tell me why my life was unmanageable. I haven't lost a family. I haven't lost a wife. I haven't lost a job. I still have 2 cars in the house. What he's not considering is you haven't lost them yet. If there are any of you in this room who have a litany of the nevers, somebody once said, keep drinking. All those good things will happen to you. But you don't have to. You've already proven to yourself hundreds of times the facts. Your drinking is causing trouble in your life. Yes, you still have your wife, but your marriage is dangling by a thread. One time, a friend of mine had a patient walk into him, and he said, I don't belong here. I've been here for a week. I've listened to everything you have to offer. I just don't think I belong here. And he went through this whole litany of nevers that everybody else is talking about. And when he finished, the boss of the place said, you've just told me all the things that alcohol has not done to you. Let's not talk about them. Let's talk about what it has done. It brought you here, didn't it? And then he took off from there. Unmanageable. The noblest faculty, the human animal.
You know, somebody did that to me. Somebody did that to me early on in treatment. Or I wasn't going to treatment, but I was dating a girl who her brother was an addict, so the mom was really knowledgeable on alcoholism, drug addiction. And she knew that I drank. She knew that I had problems. She, and she was trying to get me sober also. And she asked me that point blank one day. You know what? If you like alcohol so much and you defend it and you think you don't have a problem, what good has it ever done for you? And I was being a smart ass, and I said, well, it gets me drunk. It makes me happy. It makes me do this. It makes me do that. She's like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. That's the obvious. I said, okay. She said, has it gotten you a better car? Has it gotten you a better job? Has it allowed you to have sanity in your life? Has it repaired relationships with people who you damaged them with? Has it gotten you more money? Has it helped your health? And boy, she pinned me to the corner with that. Yeah, we're glad to see you here, Cash. She pinned me to the corner with that. And I was like, damn, I can't get out of this because they hadn't done none of that. If anything, it's taken away. It's taken away from those things. But I still didn't let her know that she was right.
Animal has is his mind. It's what makes him godlike. Alcohol occupies 90% of the active drinker's waking thought. Alcohol or drugs controlled the people you associated with and those you stayed away from. Alcohol and drugs determined the places you went and the places you avoided. Alcohol determined the very restaurants you went into and those you stayed away from. Life manageable? Let's be open-minded to truth and willing to do something about it. My friends, alcoholism and drug addiction are terminal illnesses. Doesn't it make sense for a normal human being who has it pointed out to him, there are certain signs, why don't you check them out? Doesn't it make sense to check them out? When you discuss what we've just gone over afterwards, bring some honesty and open-mindedness to the discussion. and bring a little willingness to do what needs to be done. Remember, if the alcoholic doesn't stop the drinking will ultimately stop him. And for your sakes, I hope you stop the drinking first. Thank you.
Now, wasn't that awesome? There was no religion, nothing. Just honesty. Honest person just sharing strength, hopes, and experiences. Because you know what? In reality, nobody is better than another person. Nobody. It doesn't matter what we've done in our lives. Hopefully one day we'll be able to live long enough to repair a lot of it. But most of the time we don't get that much time. So we need to let go of a lot of it in order to have the life that we want today. To enjoy the people we have today, at this moment. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next month. Don't start telling yourself, I'll live when I have this job, when I'm making this much money, when I have these amount of kids, when I have this car, this house, this dog. You have to live for today and do it the best you can. And I hope the lives that I do kind of help a little bit along the way. Because that's what I did, that's why I started my channel, was to help people who might need a little help. Because I know how difficult it is to get into treatment programs. I know how hard it is to be wanting to help or wanting to quit and not being able to. And feeling like you're all alone. And like I said earlier, this is a safe place for people to land. Well, you might try that sugar-free Dr. Pepper. That's what I'm drinking at the moment, and you can't tell the difference. Now, snuff, I don't know what to tell you. I've never liked the stuff. Swallowed it one time, and that was all it took. But you know what? It's not about making you feel guilty for a life that you live. It's about helping you if you understand that this life that you live is killing you faster than it's helping you live. We all get to that point. We all get to that point. We all get to that point where we wake up and we're like, what am I doing to myself? This isn't fun no more. This isn't fun no more. I want to do something different. I don't know how, or I don't know where to begin. Well, if you know anybody like that, put them on to one of my addiction videos and hopefully they can get a little bit of direction, or they can email me. But I can't be their therapist unless they're in the state of Texas. But I can be a good listener and I can be a good suggester of direction. I hope y'all have a wonderful night. This will be the last one for tonight, I promise. I got to get some sleep because I got to get up early in the morning. But I guess why I've been so happy, not because I need things in the exterior to make me happy, but I want to brag on myself a little bit. Yes, you're right, Leslie. Got a phone call the other day, and it was my school, the university, and they were reminding me that I hadn't registered for graduation ceremonies or, any of the stuff that goes along with graduating. And I was like, well, I didn't know I was supposed to. And they're like, yeah, we need to do it now because you have 2 more classes and you're done. So in 11 weeks, my faithful friends and followers, I will have my bachelor's in criminal justice. That's hard to say without being disassociated and believing it. And I don't like to brag on myself because I still can't believe that I'm this close. And like I've always told you guys, I always get right to the end and somehow find a way to mess it up. And I'm not going to do that. Okay, I'm not going to do that. But man, just be here and push me toward this, man. Just help me out. Tell me to shut the F up and get to studying. You know what I mean? I can't believe this. I cannot believe this. But anyways, thank you all for being here since the channel started 2 years ago. It's been a hell of a journey, a hell of a ride. And I hope that you guys continue to be safe. Cash, if you need me, my email's in the channel. Shoot me an email, buddy, if only just to talk. If you don't want any suggestions or any kind of feedback, just tell me you just want to vent. I'll read the email and delete it. Okay? You guys be awesome, okay? Maestro, cue that music.
No code.
Warning, Neo detected. Warning, Neo detected.
Check.